Hello, everyone. Tonight we're going to do something a little different. You're not heading into a battlefield, or a medieval feast, or even a Victorian sickbed. Not exactly. You're stepping into something older, heavier, and strangely invisible. You're walking into a space you already know intimately, even if you never wanted to. Because tonight, we're going to talk about grief. Real grief. The kind that waits for you in the shower. The kind that finds you when the world is silent and your phone isn't buzzing. Right now, it's quiet. The lights are dim. There's a gentle hum somewhere, maybe from your fan, or maybe it's just the echo of your own thoughts. And somewhere in that space between noise and silence, between memory and numbness, is where tonight's story begins. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And if you're up for it, post your location and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far this story travels. Now turn off the lights, let the gentle hum of the fan surround you, and let yourself quietly drift into tonight's story. You're kidding yourself if you think grief is something you go through like it's a car wash. It doesn't have a clear entrance and an automatic exit. It's not even linear, like those cute diagrams with stages. Grief is a shapeshifter. Sometimes it shows up in the form of forgetting where you parked. Sometimes it's a laugh that ends too fast. Sometimes it's a song you skip. And tonight, it's the silence you're sitting in. That hum in your head, that might be it knocking. You don't have to do anything dramatic, just exist. That's all grief ever really asks for, honestly. It doesn't need you to perform. It doesn't need a violin soundtrack. It shows up in your socks, in your refusal to buy bananas because they'll rot too fast, in the text you almost sent before you remembered. And now you're standing at the edge of something. You might be feeling it, or you might not be feeling anything. Numbness counts. In fact, that's one of grief's favorite disguises. But here's a secret. People have been here before. Thousands of years. Before you were born. Someone else stood in a doorway, looked out at the cold, and didn't know how to go on. Let's go back, just for a moment. Back to a time before phones and grief counselors and sad playlists. Before pillows. Before we even really had a word for grief. Just loss, absence, silence. Imagine a cave lit faintly by firelight. The smell of smoke clings to everything. Your hair, your skin, the wool over your shoulders. There's a low hum of wind outside, but inside, everything is still. Someone has died. You don't speak the words because there aren't any words yet. Not really. But you know. You feel the wrongness in the air. A hunter's bow leans, unused in the corner. His sleeping space is empty. The others are sitting, silent, tracing patterns in the dirt with sticks. And then, the fire crackles. A woman reaches into a pouch and pulls out ochre, red like blood, red like memory. She paints a line across her cheek. You copy her. Not because you were told to, but because that's what it seems you should do. It's the beginning of ritual, of making something sacred out of something awful. They bring the hunter's body to a shallow grave just outside the cave. His tools are buried with him, his flint blade, his beads, a bone flute. No one's sure why. Maybe he'll need them. Maybe you just can't bear to see them lying around. Historians still debate whether these burials were spiritual or practical. Maybe both, maybe neither. Maybe grief existed before belief. Just an ache, like hunger, that we try to feed with stones and ceremony. You walk back from the burial site. The sun is low. You keep glancing over your shoulder, not expecting him to be there, just hoping. And now, thousands of years later, you still do the same. You make little rituals. Maybe it's re-watching their favorite movie. Maybe it's cooking something they used to like, even if you hate it. Maybe it's saving their contact in your phone, even when you know you'll never call it again. That's you, painting ochre on your cheeks in your own way. And maybe, just maybe, there's a small comfort in that. One of the most quietly astonishing things about being human is this: we need to make meaning. When the worst things happen, we don't just fall apart. We fold the grief into shapes. We make it into stories, into whispers and photographs and bad poetry and online playlists and little paper cranes. Not because it fixes anything, but because it reminds us we're still here. So tonight, in the quiet, you're part of that tradition. You're doing what people have always done. You're sitting in the dark. You're remembering someone. You're grieving. And you're not alone. The fire crackles again. But this time it's not a prehistoric cave. It's still night, still quiet. But now you're in a small reed hut near the Nile. The moonlight turns the water silver. You've been crying, but you keep wiping your face because grief isn't supposed to be messy here. It's supposed to be sacred, controlled, even beautiful. You're in ancient Egypt, where the dead are more prepared for the afterlife than most people are for a weekend trip. Grief, here, is a full-time occupation, and it's scented like frankincense and myrrh. Your uncle has died. He wasn't rich, but he had enough for a proper send-off. So now, you and your cousins stand in a line, heads shaved smooth, white linen robes brushing your ankles. The priest arrives in gold-trimmed garments, muttering sacred words as he steps carefully around the embalming table. You're not supposed to watch, but you peek anyway. You see the removal of organs, each one placed into its own jar, like grief compartmentalized. Heart, lungs, liver, stomach, all stored neatly, as if your uncle might wake up one day and need them again. Historians still debate whether the average Egyptian really believed in the elaborate details of the afterlife, or if it was just what everyone did, the way you might have kept your grandma's church fan even if you never went to church. The rituals were comfort, regardless. You carry a jar of sacred oil. It's heavy, and the scent makes your head swim. You pour it onto a stone slab as instructed. Every motion here is measured. Every tear is permissible, but only in the right amount. Too little, and you're cold. Too much, and you're weak. Mourning has rules. There are hired mourners, women who throw themselves on the ground and wail like it's an Olympic sport. You stare, unsure if you should feel impressed or horrified. Grief has choreography in Thebes. It has costume changes. It even has makeup. They say you can't enter the afterlife with a messy face. Later, the procession begins. You walk behind the bier as it's carried toward the tomb. The sun is brutal, and you squint against it, sweat tracing slow rivers down your back. A child next to you whispers that the gods are watching. You nod, not because you believe it, maybe you do a little, but because sometimes it helps to think someone's keeping track, that the weight you're carrying means something. You reach the edge of the burial chamber. The tomb smells like dust and honey. You place a carved Ushabti figurine inside, a tiny servant for the afterlife. Maybe your uncle will need help keeping things tidy on the other side. You wonder if he'll see you place it there. You wonder if he sees you now. The priest finishes the final prayer. Everyone steps back. The stone door is rolled into place. It grinds loudly, painfully. The sound is final in a way no words ever could be. And just like that, he's gone, out of sight and supposedly into eternity. That night, you sit by the riverbank. The stars are impossibly bright. Someone hands you a palm wine cup. It's bitter. You sip it anyway. There's no feast. This wasn't a celebration, but grief makes you hungry for food, for comfort, for signs. A bird calls in the distance. You wonder if it's a message. Probably not, but maybe. That's the thing about ancient grief. It lived in the signs and symbols, in amulets and dreams. It wasn't private. You didn't bottle it up and hide it behind a screen. You poured it into statues, wrapped it in linen, floated it down the Nile. You made it part of the world. That doesn't mean it hurt less. It just meant it had somewhere to go. And what about now? Maybe you don't have a burial priest or a perfume jar. Maybe your rituals are just a playlist you made when you couldn't sleep, or a photo album you refused to delete, or the way you still set out 2 mugs in the morning, even though one stays clean. That counts. That's modern embalming. That's how you keep people alive in a world that doesn't roll stones over tombs anymore. You stare at the reflection on the Nile. Your face looks different tonight. Tired maybe, but also softer. You've seen something sacred. You've carried someone to the edge. And while they didn't come back, you did. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still part of the ancient procession, even if it looks different now. And the river keeps flowing. It doesn't stop for you. It didn't stop for the pharaohs. But somehow, it carries you all the same. Because grief doesn't ask you to stop moving. It just asks you to notice. And maybe that's enough. You're up early, before the sun, and everything feels wrong. The light hasn't broken the horizon yet, and your feet are cold against the stone floor. You're in ancient Athens now, and someone has died. You're not crying, not yet. Instead, you're wrapping yourself in black wool, stiff and scratchy, a fabric woven with formality and expectation. Outside, the city is quiet, but soon it won't be. Soon there will be footsteps and voices and ritual wailing, echoing through the marble streets. You step into the chilly courtyard, where other women are gathered, all wrapped in black like you. No one speaks. You press your lips together and lower your gaze. You are in mourning, and mourning here is public, loud, and coded. There's a protocol. Grief has a structure in classical Athens. It isn't meant to be kept inside. It's a thing you do, a series of actions you must perform before the city believes you've done it right. You join the others and begin walking toward the agora. You carry offerings, olive oil, small cakes, a wreath made from dried laurel. The streets are still dark, still dreaming, but the sky is beginning to lighten, faint pink behind the rooftops. As you walk, your mind wanders. You remember the last time you saw her. You think about what you wish you had said. The air smells like ash and early bread, the scent of grief mixing with the scent of life, as it always has. Soon you reach the cemetery outside the city walls. It's not grand, not yet, but it will be. You set down the offerings beside her marker, just a simple stele, not yet inscribed. You touch the stone, not because you believe she's there, but because it's something solid in a world that now feels like fog. And then the wailing begins. It starts with a low sound, like wind winding through the hills, and then rises. One woman, then another, and then it's your voice too, raw, cracked, and rising in coordinated mourning. It's almost theatrical, and you wonder if that's strange, but it's what's expected. In Athens, to grieve is to participate. It's how you show the city what's been lost. Historians still debate whether this form of public lamentation was empowering for women, or just another performance dictated by male lawmakers. After all, laws were eventually passed to limit just how loud, how long, and how dramatically women could grieve. Grief was powerful, and power made the state nervous. You leave the cemetery at sunrise. The sun spills gold over the hills, but it doesn't feel warm. You walk back through the agora, past vendors setting up, past philosophers already deep in debate. You think about how little space the living give the dead. You think about how quickly everything resets. But when you pass an old man sweeping his stoop, he pauses, lowers his head. He sees your black wool. He knows. And that knowing, it matters. That afternoon, you help wash the body. You pour cool water from clay pitchers, careful not to spill. You anoint the skin with oil. She looks peaceful, but unfamiliar. You brush her hair, straighten her limbs. It's strangely intimate, this final service. She can't see it, but maybe the gods do. Maybe the act is for you as much as for her. Later, you sit in the shade, exhausted. Someone brings you olives, cheese, warm bread. You eat slowly, mechanically, one bite at a time, the way grief feeds you, carefully, half-heartedly. A friend sits beside you but says nothing. It's enough. You remember something she once said, something about the stars or music, or the way lemon tastes on a hot day. You smile, but your chest tightens. That's the paradox. Memory brings comfort and pain in the same breath. You feel the sun on your face, and for a moment, you think about how many people have felt this exact thing. Sun on morning skin. This moment could be yours or anyone's, anywhere in time. And that strange thought makes you feel a little less alone. You think of the myths. Persephone pulled into the underworld. Orpheus walking backward through darkness, hoping. All those stories told to explain the unexplainable, to map the unmappable terrain of loss. You don't need to believe in them literally. That's not the point. The point is that even gods grieved. Even gods broke down when love disappeared. Grief has always bent the rules of reality. And so you sit there, quiet now, warm bread in your lap, the scent of laurel in the air, and you know, grief didn't begin with you, and it won't end with you. But in this moment, in this ancient city, you're part of something deeply human, and that's not nothing. You smell the smoke before you see it, thick and earthy, drifting over the hills like a warning. This time, you're in Rome, and grief has taken on an entirely different costume. You're in a tunic, sandaled feet kicking up dust as you approach the forum. Today is the funeral, and unlike the Greeks, the Romans have turned grief into theater, and you, lucky you, have a front row seat. The procession begins just as the sun climbs over the Capitoline. Trumpets blare. Not mournful music. No, this is loud, chaotic, proud. You're elbow to elbow with other onlookers, and someone next to you is already crying. But it's unclear whether it's from sadness or the sheer volume of the horns. The body will be displayed later. But for now, you're distracted by the man in front, the funeral clown. That's not a joke. Literally a clown. He's dressed in the dead man's clothes, mimicking his walk, exaggerating his gestures. People laugh. A woman clutches her chest and sobs at the same time. Historians still debate whether this mockery was meant to celebrate life or confront death with defiance. Maybe both. Maybe it's easier to laugh at the memory than to face the emptiness. You're not sure whether to giggle or frown, but you don't look away. The bier comes next, carried high, decorated in flowers and fine cloth. The deceased is wearing a wax mask of his own face, idealized, of course. In Rome, even death is vain. His sons and grandsons wear the masks of their ancestors too, walking silently beside the body, pale-eyed and eerily still. You think of all the times you've tried to wear a mask after someone's gone, trying to look okay when you weren't. These masks just make it literal. There's something unsettling about it, but also honest. You follow the crowd to the rostra, where speeches begin. One after another, voices rise, telling stories of the man's bravery, his wit, his generosity. You don't know him personally, but you find yourself moved. That's the Roman way. Let grief be persuasive. Let it speak in complete, carefully structured Latin. You're not supposed to feel all of it, but you do. The air tastes like incense now, burnt pine and rosemary. The sun bakes the stone beneath your feet. You shift from one leg to another, trying not to cry. You don't even know this man, but grief is generous like that. It lets you borrow it. You blink. You think of your own losses, not emperors or generals, just people who made you laugh, who wore cheap shoes and mispronounced things, who mattered anyway. After the speeches, the body is taken to the cremation site just outside the city walls. You walk slowly now. The crowd thins. The music fades. You reach the pyre just in time to see the torch touch the base. Flames rise quickly, greedy, licking the sky with orange hunger. You feel heat on your face. Someone begins to sing. Not a hymn, but a soft tune, like something from childhood. It's oddly soothing. You watch the smoke spiral upward and wonder, where does it go? You don't mean physically. You mean everything. The memories, the bad jokes, the broken teacups and the unread letters. Do they drift into the sky like this? Or do they stay lodged somewhere in the cracks of your ribs? Romans believed in the manes, the spirits of the dead. They lived in little shrines and needed offerings, milk, honey, bread, simple things. Not because they were hungry, but because remembrance is a kind of nourishment. You think about what you offer to your dead. Is it a song you don't skip? A place you don't visit? A photo you can't delete? Grief isn't just an absence. It's a relationship that doesn't end. It just changes form. On the way back, a boy runs past you holding a stick, laughing. Life, it seems, doesn't stop. And you, still holding your place in the world, keep walking. You pass a vendor selling masks like the ones you saw earlier. You pause. You think about buying one, not for decoration, but as a reminder that everyone wears grief, some on their faces, some in their pockets, some behind their smiles. You don't buy it, but you remember. And that, in this city of marble and masks, is enough. You can hear the ocean long before you see it, the distant crashing of waves against jagged rock, steady and ancient, like a heart still beating after the story ends. This time, you're in the north, cold salt in the air, in the sky the color of worn steel. You're standing on the edge of a fjord, the earth frozen beneath your boots, and someone you loved is lying on a wooden boat. The Vikings don't hide their grief. They set it on fire. Today, you'll do the same. You grip the side of the longship, your fingers cold and stiff, but you don't let go. The others gather around, each one solemn but stoic, offering tokens to send across the sea. Furs, weapons, bowls of ale. You bring a carved comb. It's a small thing, but he used it every day. That's enough. The wind tugs at your cloak, and you pull it tighter. You're trying not to cry, not because you are told not to, but because the cold has already frozen most of the tears before they fall. One man says a few words. Another shouts something in Old Norse, a guttural call to the gods. Historians still debate whether every Viking really believed in Valhalla, or if the fires were more for the living than the dead. Either way, the ritual has weight. You can feel it in your chest. You help push the boat into the fjord. It's heavy, water slapping against the hull, but eventually it floats free, creaking like it remembers something. Arrows are passed around. You take one, fingers trembling. The man next to you lights the tips with pain sap and flame. Then you aim, and you release. The first arrow misses. The second hits the sail. The third lands perfectly near the base. And then, fire. It licks upward fast, bright against the gray. The ship is drifting now, pulled slowly toward the horizon. Smoke rising like a promise. You watch until your eyes hurt. You think of all the things you didn't say, of the nights spent listening to stories around the hearth, of how he always left one piece of bread on the plate for the spirits. And now he's gone, and the fire is your only reply. You stand for a long time, the others silent, no music, no clowns, no hired mourners, just wind, fire, water, and loss. Eventually, someone puts a hand on your shoulder. They don't speak. They don't need to. Later, you gather in a longhouse. It smells like mead and sweat and ash. The floor is covered in rushes, and the hearth blazes in the center. Someone passes you a hornful of ale. You drink deeply. It burns a little going down. Someone else begins to tell a story about the time he slipped on frozen fish, about the bear that supposedly winked at him, about the time he lost a bet and had to wear a tunic inside out. Everyone laughs. You do too. It catches thou off guard, that laugh, like a cough or a hiccup. It's sudden, but it's real. And for a second, you don't feel the ache. You just feel warm and alive. You realize something then. Vikings didn't just burn their dead to honor them. They told stories. They laughed. They feasted. Because grief isn't only sorrow, it's memory. It's presence without presence. And sometimes it's letting yourself laugh when it feels impossible. You step outside again. The boat is just a speck now, a trail of smoke fading into sky. You close your eyes and breathe in salt and ash. You don't know if he made it to Valhalla. You don't know if there's anywhere to make it to. But you do know this. You carried him to the fire. You watched the sea take him. You stayed until the smoke was gone. And now you walk back. Not because the grief is finished, but because the story isn't. Not yet. Not for you. You wake before dawn, wrapped in rough wool, the air dry and tasting faintly of sand. The silence here is not soft, it's endless. You're in the desert now, the early Christian desert, and grief here has no audience. There are no mourning clothes, no loud laments, no burning ships, just you, the horizon, and a man who has chosen to disappear. You walk barefoot across the cooling stones, following him. He doesn't speak. He hasn't in days. His feet are cracked, his skin darkened by sun and wind, and his eyes, when he does glance back, look like they've already seen something you haven't. He's a monk, or a hermit, or just someone who got tired of pretending the world made sense. His grief is private, but not small. He had a brother once, you heard. And when that brother died, something unfastened. So now he lives out here, alone, waking with the sun, praying with the birds, eating only dates and bread so dry it could scratch the roof of your mouth. You don't know why you're here exactly. You didn't plan it. But after your loss, something pulled you into this emptiness. Maybe you thought it would fix you. Maybe you just wanted to see what silence looked like when it stretched into weeks. He lets you stay. That's it. Just lets you. No blessing, no welcome speech. He nods once and keeps walking. You build a small shelter beside a boulder, barely enough space to lie down. Each night, you stare at the sky, wondering where the grief went during the day, because it doesn't feel gone, just quiet. Historians still debate whether these early desert fathers were fleeing persecution, or if they were rejecting society, or if they were simply broken in a way words couldn't explain. Maybe all of the above. You certainly don't feel holy. You feel cracked and exhausted. But you also feel something. One morning, you watch him gather a handful of stones. He places them in a line, then kneels and prays. Not aloud, just with his body. You mimic him. You arrange 7 pebbles in a circle. You sit beside them. You breathe. That's the whole ritual. Just breath. Just presence. You realize how hard that is, just being. No distractions, no noise, no comfort food or scrolling. Just the ache, raw and waiting. At night, you hear jackals in the distance. The wind pulls at your blanket. You feel exposed, but also, weirdly, clean. Not healed. Just stripped of everything that used to get in the way of feeling. The hermit never tells you to go back. But one day, he hands you a bowl of lentils and says, "It's time." That's it. Just that. And you understand. You pack what little you brought. You bow. He nods again. The desert version of goodbye. As you walk back towards civilization, you realize something unsettling. The grief is still with you, but it's changed. Not smaller, just less jagged. Like a stone you've carried long enough that it's worn down the sharp edges. You remember the silence. You remember the way your breath sounded when it was the only thing you could hear. And you realize that silence wasn't empty. It was full of something ancient, something sacred, something that had space for your pain without trying to explain it away. When you finally reach the edge of the city, the noise hits you like a wave. Voices, carts, animals, bells. It's overwhelming, but you keep walking. You're still grieving, but you're also still moving. And that, in its quiet, sand-swept way, is a kind of miracle. You sit beneath a tree, the air sweet with plum blossoms, and somewhere behind you, a gong sounds low and slow like a heartbeat turned to stone. You're in China now, during the Tang dynasty, and grief here wears silk slippers and moves with grace. But that doesn't mean it hurts any less. Today is Qingming, the tomb sweeping festival, and you've come to your father's grave with a bundle of offerings, tea leaves, candied lotus root, 2 paper horses, and a small kite shaped like a swallow. Your sleeves are long. the embroidery catching on the wind, and your hair is tied with white ribbon, the color of mourning. Everything is deliberate. Everything is quiet. You kneel before the gravestone, brush away fallen petals, and place the offerings in a semicircle. Then you light the incense, bow 3 times, and lower your head. This is grief in its most formal attire, polished, measured, public. But your hands shake as you pour the rice wine onto the earth. You whisper something, too soft for even yourself to hear, and it floats away on the breeze like the smoke. Historians still debate whether Qingming evolved strictly from Confucian traditions or whether its roots go deeper, mingling with older spring rites. But whatever its origin, the result is clear. Grief here is seasonal, scheduled. The living owe the dead their attention, especially now when flowers bloom and the wind carries memory like perfume. A small boy flies a kite nearby. You watch it rise, thinking of your father's voice, the way it always dropped when he told stories. You remember the way he peeled fruit for you without being asked, the way he never finished his tea. You don't cry, not because you're holding back, but because the tears feel like they've settled somewhere deeper. Instead, you light the paper horses. They catch quickly, folding in on themselves as they blacken and drift upward. Somewhere, it's said, he'll receive them, that he'll ride those horses through the afterlife. You don't know if you believe that, but belief isn't required. The ritual is enough. You stay until the incense burns out. A breeze picks up, rustling the trees. The sound is like soft applause, or maybe just the world acknowledging your effort. As you gather your things, you notice someone else nearby. An old woman placing oranges at a grave, bowing slowly, her spine curved like a river bend. You nod at her. She nods back, that's all. But it feels like a shared language. Later, at home, you place your father's portrait back on the shelf. It sits beside the scrolls and the jar of dried plums he used to sneak at night. You light one more stick of incense, not for tradition, just because the scent makes the air feel full. You sip tea in silence. You trace your finger along the edge of his old inkstone, and you realize grief here is not only about mourning, it's about maintenance. It's about keeping the dead involved, invited, remembered not just once, but regularly. Grief becomes a rhythm, and in that rhythm, there's comfort. A soft voice inside you says, you did what you were supposed to do. You showed up. You remembered. And for today, that's enough. The kite is still flying outside. You can see it from the window. You imagine it carrying your thoughts up into the sky. Unread letters, quiet apologies, old laughter. They'll drift until the wind decides what to do with them. And you'll be here, brewing more tea, waiting for the next season to begin. You kneel on polished wood, your hands resting on your thighs, the scent of incense curling like smoke from a distant fire. You are in Japan now, during the feudal age, and everything around you is still, so still it feels like the world is holding its breath. Before you sits a small wooden shrine, and on it, a nameplate carved with care, incense, and a faded painting of a man you once called brother. He was a samurai. He died with honor, and now you're expected to do the same, with grief as disciplined as a sword. You bow slowly until your forehead touches the floor. There's no wailing here, no clowns, no burning boats, just silence, respect, and the weight of legacy. You offer rice, water, and a cup of sake. You place a small blade beside the offering, not for use, but as a symbol. That you remember. that you still follow the way. Historians still debate whether all samurai practiced ritual mourning with such precision, or if these customs were more idealized than real, passed down through careful scrolls and filtered story. But here, in this quiet space, grief is not weakness. It is form. It is structure. It is how you stand up when you would rather collapse. You rise from your bow and recite a poem, not one of your own. Your grief is too raw for words right now, but one your brother once admired. It speaks of falling leaves, of mountain fog, of the way even swords rust. You repeat it twice, letting the syllables steady your heartbeat. A bell sounds somewhere in the distance, low and hollow. You imagine your brother walking toward it, wrapped in morning mist, nodding politely to spirits along the path. The thought makes you smile, then ache. You step outside. The garden is trimmed precisely. The rocks are raked into perfect swirls. A single maple leaf has landed where it shouldn't. You reach to move it, but pause. Let it stay. Let something be out of place. The koi in the pond swims slowly, unbothered, little worlds of color beneath the water. You sit beside them, watching the movement of shadows across their backs. You remember your brother sitting here, the way he used to hum under his breath without realizing. He always liked the orange ones. You close your eyes and try to hum too. It's not quite right, but it's close enough. You remember how he folded his clothes with perfect creases, how he sharpened his blade before every journey, how he never forgot your birthday even when on campaign. You miss him in a way that stings behind the ribs, like the echo of a blow that never fully healed. Inside, you return to the shrine. You write his name in calligraphy, slowly, carefully. Each stroke, deliberate. Each curve of the brush, a small prayer. You place the page beside the offering bowl and watch the ink dry. Later, you attend a memorial gathering in a nearby home. It's not a celebration, but neither is it wholly solemn. Guests bring modest gifts. There is soft music played on koto. People share tea and memories. One man laughs too loudly at a story, and no one scolds him. Your brother would have laughed too. Someone mentions the day he got caught sneaking rice balls during training. Another tells the story of when he fell asleep during patrol and blamed the cat. You don't speak at first. Then someone asks you what you miss most, and your voice surprises you. He always left the last sip of tea for the gods, you say, even when it was cold, even when he forgot everything else. They nod. That sounds like him. That sounds like the kind of thing that matters now. On your way home, the sky is darkening. Lanterns sway from doorways. The air smells of pine smoke and sweet soy. You carry with you the gift someone gave, a folded crane made from blue silk. You set it beside the shrine when you return, next to the sake. You light another stick of incense. You bow again, and for a moment you speak aloud. I hope you found peace, you whisper. I'm trying to live well, the way you taught me. No one hears, except maybe the wind, or the spirits. You don't need an answer. You just needed to say it, and so you do. In the days that follow, you keep returning to the shrine, not out of obligation, but because the rhythm helps. You sweep the steps. You straighten the offering bowls. You leave small things, a plum, a ribbon, a note you don't sign. You learn that grief doesn't always howl. Sometimes it kneels. Sometimes it pours tea. Sometimes it waits quietly at a doorway, hands folded, knowing that you'll come sit beside it when you're ready. And so you do, again and again, And every time, it hurts just a little less. Or maybe you just grow stronger. You're not sure. But when you watch the wind move the maple trees outside, you find yourself breathing easier. You remember the poem about rust. You remember the silence of the brush. And you remember the one truth the samurai never wrote down but always knew. The ones we love teach us how to die, but if we're lucky, they also teach us how to live. You wake to bells, not the gentle kind, but sharp, urgent, echoing across narrow stone alleys that haven't seen clean air in weeks. The sky is a bruised gray, the kind that makes you wonder if the sun forgot. You're in medieval Europe now, and the plague has arrived again. You don't remember when it started, just that people began coughing, then vanishing. At first, it was just a neighbor, then a cousin, then the woman who sold you apples every week. Now it's your sister. You sit by the hearth, clutching a damp rag, listening to her breathe, or trying to. She wheezes, moans once, and then nothing. You stay frozen for a full minute, not because you don't care, but because you already know what comes next. There's no priest. There are no rites. You've already used the last candle, and the herbs are gone. There's no one to help you lift her, no one to whisper prayers. It's just you, a bucket of rainwater, and grief that's starting to smell like mold. You cover her face with a linen scrap. Whisper something, not because you believe anyone hears, but because you can't not say it. Then you wait, because now you must decide what to do. You think about the others, the bodies piled at the edge of town, the ones burned without names, the ones taken by men with carts who don't speak. You think about the bell ringers, hired to walk the streets with ropes tied to iron clappers, shouting, "Bring out your dead." You think about how they never look anyone in the eye. Historians still debate whether these public mourning rituals helped communities process grief or simply turned death into routine. Maybe both. Maybe repetition is the only shield against horror. Eventually, you wrap your sister in what cloth remains. You carry her out the back, avoiding the main road. You pass a house where every window is shuttered. A dog barks once, then falls silent. You bury her yourself behind the tree where you used to chase each other as children. The ground is soft from last week's storm. You don't say a speech. You don't have the strength. You just place a single stone on the mound, that's all. Then you walk back, past empty streets and locked doors, back to your cold kitchen, back to silence. And in that silence, grief starts to settle. Not with a scream, but like dust, slowly. You sit at the table and press your fingers into the wood, trying to feel something solid. You eat bread so stale it hurts your teeth. You drink water from a cracked jug. Every movement feels like a ritual now. You light a small piece of candle stub, not enough to see by, but enough to pretend. You whisper your sister's name. Once, twice, again. You write it in the soot on the table, and then you sleep. Not because you want to, but because you have no choice. In the morning, you wake and look at the space where her mat used to be. It's just an empty floor now. You sweep it anyway. That afternoon, a stranger knocks. He doesn't speak, just hands you a cloth parcel. Dried herbs, a crust of bread, a small wooden cross. You nod, and he nods, and that's the entire exchange. You cry after he leaves, not because of the gift, but because someone remembered. Someone still sees you. You hang the cross above the hearth. You grind the herbs into tea. You say thank you, even though he's gone. Weeks pass. the bell rings less often. The streets start to show signs of life. One shutter opens, then another. You see a child playing with a stick of the mud. You smile, just a little. Not because you've healed, but because something cracked open and light got in. You plant a flower by your sister's grave. It doesn't bloom for weeks. Then it does. A tiny, stubborn violet, defying rot and ruin. You laugh when you see it. It's a strange, small sound, but it's yours. And suddenly, you understand something. Grief doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's sweeping the floor. Sometimes it's a violet blooming exactly where death thought it had the final word. The sun is high, and your skin smells like ash and sweat. You're standing in the shadow of a towering pyramid, though this is no tourist attraction. This is Tenochtitlan, heart of the Aztec world, and you've come here not to grieve quietly, but to watch grief made into ritual, spectacle, and fire. Someone important has died. A warrior, a priest, a leader. You're not even sure. What matters is the ceremony, and today you're part of it. You step carefully over smooth stone, your bare feet warmed by the ground beneath. The city around you thrums with life. Dancers move in spirals. Drums beat in layered rhythms that seem to echo your own heartbeat. And incense curls in thick clouds from pots held high by young boys with painted faces. You hold your breath. The scent is sharp, heavy with copal and something else, something bitter and ancient. You follow the crowd, drawn toward the base of the temple. There, at the top of steep stairs, the body waits. It's dressed in jaguar skin, its chest painted red, its lips touched with blue. The people around you chant words you don't fully understand, but the tone carries everything: honor, reverence, terror. You know what's coming. Everyone does. Historians still debate whether these rituals were performed as frequently as the chronicles claimed, or if the Spanish exaggerated them to paint the Aztecs as monstrous. But today, it's not history. It's happening. A priest raises his arms, blade in hand. You close your eyes, just for a second. When you open them, it's done. The heart is lifted toward the sun, blood catching the light like rubies. There is silence, just for a breath. Then the drums resume. Louder now, fierce. You're shaking, but you don't look away. Grief here is not private. It is cosmic. It is embedded in the structure of the world. Death feeds the gods. Without sacrifice, the sun won't rise. That's what they believe, and belief shapes everything. You try to imagine grief as fuel, as something that keeps the universe turning. It's hard. You've always thought of it as heavy, as something that drags you down, but here it's lifted skyward. You watch the attendants carry the body away. You don't follow. Instead, you walk through the city. People are lighting candles at household altars, laying maize and chocolate beside skull-shaped offerings. Children carry marigolds. An old woman brushes her doorway with a bundle of herbs, singing softly. Even the dogs are quiet today. You find yourself in a courtyard, alone for the first time since morning. You sit on a stone bench and look up. The sky is impossibly blue. You think of someone you lost long ago, someone whose name you haven't said in years. You whisper it now. It catches in your throat like smoke. You whisper it again, louder this time. There's no answer, but something shifts inside you like a door creaking open. Maybe it's the heat. Maybe it's the memory. But you feel it, a strange kind of clarity. Like the grief has structure now, shape, meaning. Not because of what you saw in the temple, but because of what you feel now, alone, under the sky, name on your lips. You walk back through the city. A child offers you a sugar skull. You take it. You carry it with both hands. You think about how the Aztecs saw no contradiction in beauty and death, no tension between sweetness and sorrow. You place the skull at the base of a small altar, beside a candle already half melted. You don't say a prayer, but you stay for a while, just sitting, breathing, letting the scent of flowers and ash fill your nose. That night, the city glows with fire. The people sing, slow and rhythmic. It's not joy exactly, but it's not despair either. It's something else, something in between. You sleep on a mat by the temple wall. In your dream, the person you lost is walking ahead of you, not looking back. You follow quietly, feeling your feet touch the same earth they once walked. You don't catch up, but you're not far behind. And somehow, when you wake, it feels enough to have followed at all. The wind here doesn't whisper, it howls, sweeping across the endless grasslands with a voice that sounds older than language. You're on the steppe now, under a sky so wide it makes your chest ache. This is the land of the Mongols, where horses run like ghosts across the horizon, and grief is lifted into the open, not buried, but given to the sky itself. Today, you're not in a city, or a shrine, or a temple. You're standing in a circle of stones, with the body of someone you love lying beside you, wrapped in thick felt, their hands folded over their chest, eyes closed forever. There is no grave, no tomb, no fire. This is a sky burial. You kneel beside the body, brushing dust from their face, waiting. Vultures are already circling in the distance. You've been told not to be afraid, not to cry too loudly. This isn't abandonment, it's offering. This is how the Mongols returned to the world. Historians still debate the exact rituals of these burials, how much was spiritual and how much was practical. But here, in the middle of nowhere, with no walls or altars, it feels undeniably sacred. You stand and step back, eyes fixed on the sky. The birds descend slowly, cautiously. You grip the edge of your coat, not to shield yourself, but to hold on to something, anything. The first bird lands with a rustle of wings, then another. You look away, then back, then away again. This is grief with feathers, grief without euphemisms. The body is returned to the wild, piece by piece. It's hard to watch. You feel sick. You also feel awed, because somehow this feels honest. Not gentle, but not cruel either. Just real. The way snow falls, the way wolves howl, the way everything that lives must one day be given back. You sit cross-legged, eyes closed, listening to the flapping of wings and the rustling of dry grass. You remember their voice, the way they used to hum tunelessly while cooking, the way they always noticed the shape of clouds, how they once told you the wind could carry messages if you breathed deeply enough. You breathe deeply now. The air is sharp but clean. You imagine your breath rising to meet theirs. Later, when the birds have flown and the sun begins to fall, you walk the perimeter of the site, scattering milk and tea onto the earth. You whisper thanks. You tie a strip of blue silk to a branch nearby, a kadag, a symbol of respect and remembrance. It flutters in the wind like a flag, like a voice. You stay until the stars appear, one by one, bright and cold. There are no graves here, but there is memory. There is the sky. You ride back to your camp slowly. The horse seems to know you're not in a hurry. You pass others, herders, traders, travelers, each nodding in recognition. They've all lost someone. They've all returned someone to the wind. You reach your yurt and sit by the fire. The flames crackle low. You add more dung to the stove. It smells strange but warm. You eat boiled meat and flatbread. You drink salted tea. You don't speak, but you don't feel alone. That night, you dream of a field with no end. The person you lost is riding ahead of you, turning to wave once, then disappearing into the wind. You don't try to chase them. You just ride slowly, knowing you're on the same path. When you wake, you step outside and look up. The sky is pale, cloudless. You touch the silk ribbon in your pocket, still smelling faintly of them. And you understand something you didn't before. Grief doesn't always demand to be held. Sometimes it asks to be released, given to the birds, to the wind, to something vast and old enough to carry it far beyond what you can bear alone. And so you let it go, not because you're ready, but because the sky is waiting. You sit upright, spine straight despite the ache, wearing a dress of stiff black silk, trimmed with jet beads that click when you move. The mirror shows your face, pale and composed, with eyes that haven't slept in days. You're in Victorian England now, in a drawing room draped in heavy curtains that block even the idea of sunlight. The grandfather clock ticks loudly, the only sound allowed in a house where someone has just died. Your husband 3 days ago. And now you've entered the grief economy. A system so elaborate that even your sorrow comes with receipts. The mourning period has rules. 3 months in full black, then half mourning with lilac or gray. No dancing, no laughter, no jewelry, unless it contains his hair woven into a brooch you ordered from a catalog so thick it might as well be scripture. You wear a ring with his initials, a necklace that holds a miniature painting of his face. You can't touch anything without being reminded. Historians still debate whether Victorian mourning rituals truly helped the bereaved or merely trapped them in performance. But right now, surrounded by stiff furniture and judgmental portraits, it doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like duty. You receive visitors who speak in whispers and bring flower arrangements shaped like hearts and doves and tearful angels. You thank them. You pour tea with hands that tremble just slightly. You never cry in front of them. You wait until they leave. Then you walk to the corner chair, the one he always used, and sit in it. Not for comfort, just for closeness. You run your fingers along the carved wood. You imagine his voice, his footsteps, the way he used to knock twice before entering. You write a thank you note to his tailor. You press flowers into a book. You sit still. That's most of your day, sitting still. Even grief moves slowly here. You keep a morning journal, of course. Daily entries, everyone beginning with the weather. Cloudy. His scent remains on the lapel of his jacket. Rain. His dog refuses to eat. Sunlight through the drapes today. Felt guilty for noticing. You mark the days not with numbers, but with losses. First night alone. First morning tea alone. First laugh alone, quickly stifled. One afternoon, a friend arrives with a new photograph. It's you and him, hand-colored, taken 3 years ago. You don't remember the moment, but you remember the dress. You place it beside the bed. You don't sleep, but you close your eyes and listen to the house creak. It sounds like it's morning too. A month in, you attend a morning etiquette lecture. A woman explains how to fold a widow's veil properly. Another asks about gloves. You want to scream. Instead, you ask where to find black stationery. There are rules for everything now, even envelopes, even ink. At the cemetery, you visit his grave. The grass is still new. You stand exactly 5 minutes as instructed. No more, no less. You read the inscription. You trace it with a gloved finger. You don't cry, but your shoulders shake. That's allowed. You walk home past people who avoid your eyes. Morning clothes are a warning. I am not safe to talk to. I am contagious with loss. A child waves at you. You almost wave back. Almost. At home, you remove your gloves, light a small fire, and stare into it. You sip weak tea. You stare at the spot where his coat still hangs. You wonder if you should put it away. You don't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night, you lie awake listening to the rain. It feels like the world is weeping for you, or with you. You imagine him beside you, warm and real, and then you turn toward the wall, afraid you might forget the weight of his hand on your back. You whisper his name, just once, just to hear it in the room again. You fall asleep still wearing your gloves. In the morning, you wake and write in your journal. Another day, I made it. And somehow, you feel proud. The sun is hot and the sky a dull white, and you're crouching low in the dust, fingers smeared with ash, breath shallow from the sting of grief that doesn't feel quite yours but lives inside you all the same. You're in the highlands of Papua, in a village surrounded by mist and silence, and today someone you loved has died. Around you, women wail with voices like torn fabric, high and sharp and endless. You don't make a sound, not yet, because the pain hasn't formed words inside you. You wrap your arms around your knees and watch as the smoke from the cooking fires drifts into your face, making your eyes water whether you want it to or not. The others begin the preparations. It is time. There's no priest, no coffin, no polished wood or velvet curtains. There's only a body, a hut, and a grief that takes physical shape. You walk to the fire, take a fistful of soot, and rub it across your face, your arms, your chest. The ash clings to your sweat, turning you into something between human and ghost. Someone ties your fingers with string, tight, almost to the point of pain. One will be cut, they tell you, a piece for a piece. Historians still debate the ritual of finger amputation among the Dani people, whether it was symbolic, spiritual, communal, or a mixture of all three. But here, in this moment, it's not theory. It's obligation. It's devotion. It's loss made visible. You glance at your hand. The fingers seem so ordinary now, so alive. You think about how they once touched the face of the person now gone, how they braided their hair, how they held theirs in moments of fear or joy. And now one of them will be left behind. You do not resist. You breathe. The women begin to chant again, low this time, a hum that blends with the wind. Someone places a stone blade beside you. You do not flinch. You think about how the pain will come and go, but the absence will stay. You think about how grief, in this place, has no room for metaphor. It is raw, unapologetic, unedited. You take the blade in your hand. You do not use it yourself. That is not your role, but you hold it until your knuckles turn white. Someone else steps forward. You look into her eyes and nod. She nods back. She is gentle. It is done quickly. The pain is hot, immediate, and then strange. A blankness that rushes in after the fire. You bite down on a cloth and breathe through your nose. The chanting grows louder. You don't cry. Not from the wound. Not yet. You wrap your hand tightly in leaves and bark. Later, it will throb. Later, it will itch. But right now, it just feels like the truth. You sit back down, your body numb, your soul vibrating. A child sits beside you and places a feather in your hair. You don't know why. Maybe to honor you. Maybe to balance the weight of what you've lost. You close your eyes and hear the forest breathing. The trees sway, the fire crackles. Someone laughs, gently. You remember a story the dead used to tell, about birds that could turn into people, about mountains that cried. You smile through the pain. You let it come. That night, you sleep beside the others in the longhouse. You don't dream. In the morning, you wake to a sky the color of ash, and your bandaged hand throbbing in time with your heart. You walk outside and stare at the space where they used to sit, where they used to eat, where they used to sing. It's empty now, but it isn't hollow. It holds something sacred. You sit in that space. You whisper their name into the earth. You press your wounded hand into the dirt. You don't ask to be healed. You don't expect to forget. You only ask to endure. And the earth, in its silent way, says yes. The sun filters through wide green leaves and dapples your bare feet as you sit cross-legged beneath the Bodhi tree, its roots gnarled and ancient, stretching into the soil like memory into bone. You're in northern India now, and the air hums with life. Cicadas, distant voices, the soft shuffle of robes. Around you, saffron-robed monks move slowly, deliberately, as if each step matters more than the last. One sits beside you, his eyes half closed, hands resting gently in his lap. He says nothing, but its presence is a kind of warmth. You've come here because something inside you broke when someone you loved disappeared. Not suddenly, not violently, just quietly, like a candle running out of wick. You didn't know where else to go, so now you're here, among the silence and the scent of jasmine and earth, waiting for something, anything, that might soften the edges of your grief. The monk beside you finally speaks, his voice low and even. All things arise and pass away, he says. The pain is not wrong, it is simply real. You nod, but you don't understand yet. Not really. You sit for hours, your legs numb, your thoughts louder than the wind. You remember their laugh, the way their hands moved when they spoke, the way they hated cold mornings and always burned the toast. You let the memories come. You let them ache. The monk doesn't tell you to let go. He tells you to hold them gently, like smoke, like light. Historians still debate whether the historical Buddha meant detachment as indifference, or whether it was about clarity, about seeing life and death for what they are, not what we wish they could be. You stare at the base of the tree and wonder if it remembers the ones who've wept beneath it before you. You hope so. Later, another monk invites you to help sweep the stone path that leads to the shrine. You take the broom without speaking and begin to sweep. One leaf, then another, then another. The rhythm is comforting. Each stroke clears a little more space. You don't think, you just move. That night, you attend a Dharma talk. The monk stands beneath an oil lamp, speaking slowly about impermanence, suffering, and the illusion of control. You hear the words, but more than that, you feel the space between them, the quiet, the permission. You walk back to your small sleeping mat and sit cross-legged once more, the air cool against your skin. You close your eyes. The grief is still there, but it doesn't scream. It hums, like something living, like something learning to breathe beside you. In the morning, you rise before dawn and join the others in silent meditation. You watch your breath. In, out, in, out. Thoughts come, memories, regrets. You let them pass like clouds across a moonlit sky. You don't fight them. You just notice. You begin to understand. Grief isn't an enemy. It's not a punishment. It's a teacher. A hard one, but not unkind. After breakfast, simple rice and lentils, you help in the garden. You water a row of herbs, and for a moment, the act of caring for something feels like healing. A butterfly lands on your sleeve. You don't move. You let it rest. The monk from earlier smiles at you across the field. He doesn't need to say anything. The sky is wide above you. The Bodhi leaves rustle. Somewhere nearby, someone is chanting. You sit beneath the tree again and place a stone on the ground. Just one. You whisper a name, not as a plea, not as a goodbye, just as a truth. A part of the story. A soft echo that will live in your breath and your steps, and the way your eyes now see the world, not as something that owes you answers, but as something that invites you to stay curious even in pain. You don't feel better, but you feel steadier, and that, today, is enough. You lie back on a velvet couch that smells faintly of old cigars and damp wallpaper, staring up at a plaster ceiling as a metronome ticks somewhere to your left, steady and indifferent. You're in Vienna now, around 1905, and the man sitting behind you, scribbling with deliberate precision onto a notepad, is none other than Sigmund Freud. You didn't come here to talk about grief exactly, but that's what always comes out, doesn't it? You tell him about the dream where your mother is alive again, only she's also a dog, and somehow that makes perfect sense until you wake up. You describe the way your chest tightens at the smell of pine trees, how you can't eat apricot jam anymore, how even laughter feels like betrayal. He hums thoughtfully, adjusts his glasses. Interesting, he says, in that accent that sounds like marble rolling across wood. You are not mourning her. You are mourning the version of yourself that existed when she was alive. You blink. You don't quite understand it, but it lands somewhere behind your eyes. Historians still debate whether Freud's theories about mourning and melancholia hold up under modern psychology. But here, under the flicker of gaslight and the soft rustle of Viennese winter beyond the curtains, it feels like the truth. He asks about your father next, your childhood dog, the book you never finished reading because it reminded you too much of someone. You find yourself talking not in order, but in spirals. Grief doesn't move in straight lines, and neither do you. He nods. You say something about not being able to throw out their coat. He calls that object attachment. You say you keep forgetting they're dead. He calls that denial of the ego's perception of loss. You say you can't imagine a future. He calls that the loss of libidinal investment in the external world. You don't know if it helps, but it makes you feel less alone. Like maybe you're not broken, just human, and grieving, and trying. After the session, you walk the streets of Vienna, wrapped in a wool coat that doesn't quite block out the cold. Snow falls like powdered sugar over statues of forgotten emperors. The city hums with music, violins from an open window, a piano in a cafe, the crunch of boots on cobblestone. You pass a flower vendor and buy a single white lily. You don't know why, you just do. You carry it to the river and drop it in, watching it float like a thought you didn't want to keep. That night, you write a letter to the person you lost. You don't mail it. You don't sign it. You just write until your fingers ache. You fold it 3 times and place it under your pillow. In your next session, Freud asks if you've been dreaming. You nod. You tell him about the one where you're eating dinner with them again, except everything is underwater and no one seems to notice. He says dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. You say they're just memories you don't want to let go of. He doesn't correct you. You talk more about love than death, more about silence than words. You leave his office feeling strange, lighter maybe, or just more tired. That evening, you sit at a cafe, sipping something warm and watching people laugh around you. For a moment, you don't feel like a ghost. You just feel like a person drinking coffee in Vienna in winter, and that feels like a beginning. You're standing in a hallway filled with shadows, the wallpaper peeling, the air still and heavy, with a scent of old wood and something faintly metallic. It's London, 1918, and the war is over, but the silence it left behind is louder than any artillery. You're holding a telegram in one hand and a photograph in the other, a photograph of someone who left in uniform and never came back. Around you, the house is too quiet, as if even the walls are trying not to breathe. The war took many things, but mostly it took time. Time you thought you'd have, conversations you thought you'd finish, futures you thought were guaranteed. You sit in the parlor, the fire cold, staring into nothing. Grief is not poetic here. It's gray. It's woolen. It's tea gone cold beside your elbow because you forgot it was there. You walk to the wardrobe and run your fingers over the coat he never wore again. You open the drawer and find a ration book, a few letters tied in string, a broken fountain pen. Historians still debate whether the scale of loss from the world wars permanently altered society's emotional landscape or simply made mourning more visible. What's clear is that grief became too big to hide. Newspapers printed lists of the dead. Cemeteries overflowed. And inside homes like yours, people lit candles and waited for shoes that would never come back through the door. You fold the telegram carefully and place it beneath the photo frame. It says very little. Official, condolences, service. You wonder who wrote it, whether their hands shook, whether they knew that words like that live inside people forever. You step outside, the streets still lined with black bunting and yellowed posters, the air cold and unkind. You walk past houses with curtains drawn, chimneys puffing out smoke like sighs. Every window seems to hold a story like yours. You nod at the milkman, who nods back but says nothing. You pass the church. Bells don't ring anymore, not since the list grew too long. Inside, you light a small candle and sit in the back pew. You don't pray. You just sit. A child sneezes. Someone coughs. You stare at the flickering flame until it blurs. Later, you visit the memorial wall. Names etched in stone, one after another, all carved with the same precision as if they didn't each hold a world. You trace the letters. You whisper them. You don't cry, but your throat aches. You walk home slowly, each step heavy. You cook something simple, potatoes and onion, the way he liked it. You eat one bite, then another. Then you stop. The chair across from you is empty. You leave the plate untouched. That night, you sit by the window, watching snow fall in slow spirals, and you think about all the things he didn't see. The end of the war, the peace that followed, the trees that turned green again. You write his name on a scrap of paper and place it in your pocket. You want to carry it just a little while longer. You light a fire, the crackle soft, and place your hands near the heat. It doesn't reach the cold inside, but it's something. You whisper goodnight into the room. You don't expect an answer. You lie in bed, the blanket tucked high, and close your eyes. Outside, the city sleeps. Inside, you grieve. Gently, quietly, endlessly. You wake early the next morning, light barely touching the window pane. You walk to the kitchen and put the kettle on. Steam rises, and for a moment, you pretend it's another day, a regular day, a day before everything changed. You pour your tea, still without sugar, just the way he drank it. You carry it to the front step and sit with a cup in your hands, letting it warm your fingers. The streets are still quiet, just the sound of a horse's hooves on cobblestone somewhere beyond the fog. You sip slowly, letting the taste settle in your mouth. Someone walks by and lifts a hand in greeting. You nod, and for the first time, you don't look away. Later, you take out the letters again. You read one, then another. The ink is faded, but his voice still lives in the curls of every line. You smile at something he wrote, something ridiculous, something brave. You fold the paper gently and place it on the table. You begin to write back. Not for him, for you. Because saying things even now, even into the silence, helps. Your pen scratches softly against the paper, and with every word, your breath comes easier. The fire crackles, the kettle sings, the city begins to wake. You are walking slowly across a gravel path. The crunch beneath your shoes, the only sound you can hear apart from your own breath, and the occasional flutter of wings overhead. This is Poland, decades later, and you're standing at the edge of what was once Auschwitz. The wind is soft but cold, and everything around you seems to be holding its breath. There is no music here, no ceremony, no guides with microphones. Just signs, just silence. Just a collection of buildings that still smell faintly of something you can't name. You stop at a pile of shoes, thousands of them, small and large, tattered and mismatched, stacked like a monument to all the feet that walked into this place and never left. You stare at a single child's boot, its laces undone, its tongue sticking out like it was taken off in a hurry. Your stomach tightens. You look away, then you look back, because looking away feels like betrayal. Historians still debate whether grief on a scale this massive can be truly processed by the human brain, or if our minds reduce it to symbols, to numbers, to curated museum displays just so we can function. But here, in this place, nothing feels distant. It's in the air, in the brick, in the cold. You pass a wall lined with photographs, faces caught mid-blink, smiles frozen forever, names printed below like labels on lost luggage. You pause at one, a young woman about your age, eyes wide, head tilted slightly like she wasn't quite ready for the flash. You whisper her name, softly, and keep walking. You move slowly through the barracks. You see the rows of bunks, the scratches on the walls, the forgotten utensils, the woven straw mats that once passed for bedding. You see a display of suitcases with addresses still written in chalk. You see a room filled with hair, real human hair. The light in that room is dim, as if even the lamps know they're intruding. You hold your breath, then let it go slowly. Not because it helps, but because you have to. Outside, you find a bench and sit down. You close your eyes and let the wind touch your face. You think about what it means to mourn strangers, to grieve people you never met, to cry for a world you never lived through, and yet you feel it. The sorrow, the weight, the overwhelming sense that something was torn and can never be mended. But maybe, you think, remembering is a kind of stitching, a kind of care, a refusal to let silence win. You stand and walk to the memorial stone. It's simple, quiet. No golden angels, just words etched into granite. You trace them with your fingertips, slowly, reverently. You think about the stories that never got told, the birthdays that never came, the letters that never reached their destination. You think about how grief here is not just personal, it's planetary. It belongs to everyone. It belongs to you now. That night, back in your small hotel room, you sit on the floor with a candle lit and a notebook in your lap. You begin to write, not about what you saw, but about what you felt. You write about the silence, the names, the boot, the wind. You write until your hand cramps, until your eyes blur. You stop only when the candle flickers low. Then you close the book, press it to your chest, and breathe. In the darkness, you whisper a promise that you will not forget, that you will carry this grief like a stone in your pocket, not to weigh you down, but to remind you. Because sometimes, grief is the most human thing we have. You're walking slowly behind a brass band in New Orleans, the street hot beneath your shoes, the air thick with humidity and something more sacred than the solemn. The casket ahead of you is white, polished, adorned with flowers that look too bright against the grief they're riding on. The musicians wear black suits and white hats, their instruments gleaming under the sun, and their music. Oh, the music. It doesn't sound sad, not exactly. It sounds alive. This is not your grief alone. It belongs to the crowd around you, to the city itself, to a culture that has figured out how to weep and dance at the same time. You carry a handkerchief, not for waving, but for tears. You haven't decided yet if you'll let fall. Behind you, people sing under their breath, hymns and jazz blending like smoke and rain. This is a second-line funeral, a celebration of a life, a declaration that death will not be the final silence. Historians still debate whether the origins of second-line funerals were purely African, Caribbean, or Creole in their beginnings, or whether it was the city itself, a crossroads of griefs and joys, that shaped the ritual into this. You don't know where it started. You just know that right now, you're in it. You clap softly, walking in rhythm, your shoulders swaying a little, almost against your will. You think of the person in the casket. You think of their laugh, the way they made coffee too strong, the songs they hummed when they thought no one was listening. You think of how they would have loved this parade, this music, this day. You reach the churchyard and the music slows, shifts, leans into its sadness. The horns drop an octave, the drums soften, and the voices quiet. The casket is carried up the steps. You stand back. You don't go in. You sit on the low stone wall and listen through the open doors. The preacher's voice rises, trembles, holds. He speaks of rivers and rest and songs that don't end. You close your eyes and let the words wash over you, not because you believe every line, but because belief isn't the only thing that matters. Participation does. Witnessing does. You stay until the final hymn ends. Then you stand as the casket emerges again. The band begins to play a new song, this one faster, brighter. People cheer. Someone tosses a handful of rose petals. You laugh through your tears. You can't help it. That's how this works. Grief becomes movement. Sorrow becomes celebration. You fall into step as the second line begins in earnest. People join from all directions. Children skipping, elders nodding, dancers twirling umbrellas. You raise your handkerchief now. You wave it high. The trumpet player catches your eye and gives a little wink. You don't know him. He doesn't know you. But for a moment, you are family, all of you, connected by the loss and the music and the refusal to let the final note be despair. You march for blocks. The sun keeps shining. The brass keeps blaring. And in that noise, in that rhythm, something opens in your chest. Something that had been locked tight. You breathe easier. You swing your hips. You smile at strangers. You think of the person you lost and imagine them watching this, shaking their head, laughing, maybe even dancing in the back. When the music finally fades, when the crowd begins to disperse, you stand still. You hold the handkerchief in your hands like a relic. You press it to your lips. You whisper thank you. That night, you sit in a quiet bar, the kind with creaky stools and low lights. A pianist plays something soft and slow. You sip a drink that burns just enough. You take out a small notebook and write their name. You don't write anything else, just the name. You underline it. You close the book. You leave it on the table just for a moment before putting it away. Then you walk back out into the humid night, the sidewalk still warm beneath your feet. And for the first time in days, your shoulders feel lighter. Your steps feel certain. And the silence no longer feels like absence. It feels like music waiting to begin again. You're standing at the edge of a crumbling estate in the French countryside. The year is 1786, and the air carries the smell of damp earth, faded rose water, and secrets that were never supposed to surface. The stone chapel behind you is locked, vines creeping across the doors like veins on brittle skin, and in your gloved hand is a small velvet box that was never meant to be opened. Inside, cushioned by silk, lies a heart, a literal human heart, preserved, mummified, contained in glass, sealed with wax. You don't know what shocks you more, that it exists or that it's labeled. His name is etched in delicate script on a folded card, Comte de something. Someone who once lived, once ruled, once loved. You swallow, uncertain what emotion fits in a moment like this. Curiosity, disgust, awe, grief. You carry the box back into the drawing room where the others sit in silence, gathered around a table thick with dust and candle stubs. No one speaks for a long time. Then someone says, he wanted her to have it. Her. The woman whose name was once embroidered into bedsheets, once spoken in salons and scandals, now faded from memory like perfume on an old shawl. You place the heart on the mantel. A few of them avert their eyes. One person stares. Historians still debate whether these preserved hearts were acts of devotion, obsession, madness, or politics. But here, in this room where time feels stitched together with candle smoke and regret, it feels like something holy and terrible. You sit beside the fire and sip tea that's long since gone cold. The walls are lined with portraits, each one staring out from a frame like a ghost auditioning for eternity. You feel their eyes. You think about grief that lingers beyond death, grief that needs to be stored in boxes and vaults, as if it might otherwise burst through the skin. Later, you are taken through a corridor into the crypt, where rows of urns sit like soldiers, and above them, shelves of letters bound in red ribbon. You untie one and read a passage. It's dated February. The handwriting trembles in places. It speaks of a lost child, a fever, a lock of hair. You fold it slowly and return it, unsure whether you've trespassed or been invited. You walk outside, the garden overgrown, thistles overtaking what were once carefully manicured hedges. A bench sits under a dead rose arch. You sit there and listen to the crows overhead. You think about grief as inheritance, passed down like silverware, hidden in diaries, disguised as sentiment. You think about all the ways we try to make it beautiful. You return to the box later. You open it once more. You don't touch it. You just look. The heart is smaller than you expected. Dark, fragile, real. You wonder who will find yours one day. You wonder if anyone will keep it, or if it's better to let it go. That night, you sleep in a bed with too many blankets, the mattress uneven and the room colder than it should be. You dream of a ballroom, music echoing through a room with no walls, candles flickering on invisible tables. They are all there, the dead, dancing, laughing, not at peace, but not in pain either, just there. You wake before dawn, heart pounding. You light a candle and stare at your reflection. Your eyes look older, not from sleep, from knowing. You pack your things and prepare to leave the estate. Before you go, you return to the box one last time. You close it gently. You tie the ribbon back around it. You place it in a drawer and slide it shut. You press your hand against the wood. You say nothing. You don't need to. The silence understands. You are floating, not metaphorically, but quite literally, suspended in a spacecraft orbiting Earth with only the hum of machines and the distant whisper of oxygen flow to remind you that you're still tethered to life. The view outside the observation window is nothing short of miraculous. Stars scattered like cold glitter across the infinite dark, continents spinning silently below. But tonight, you're not here for wonder. You're here because grief has followed you even into space. You turn toward the metal wall panel just beside the galley, where a small plaque is bolted in place. It's made of brushed steel, plain and unadorned, engraved with a list of names. Astronauts lost in the pursuit of what lies beyond. You read each one aloud, barely above a whisper. You knew some of them. Others you only know through stories, through grainy videos and mission logs. But the ache is real, as present as gravity used to be. You drift in silence, hands clasped behind your back, watching your reflection in the glass ripple slightly with each breath. Historians still debate whether humans bring emotion into space or if space strips us of it. But here you are, floating in a tin can hundreds of miles above everything you once held dear, crying in slow motion. You think about how absurd it is that even up here, above the world, away from noise and memory, loss still knows your name. You reach into a Velcro pouch and retrieve a photograph, creased, soft-edged, printed on the kind of material that won't curl in 0G. It's them, smiling, holding a dog, squinting at the sun like they didn't know their image would ever make it to the stars. You tap a piece of tape against the corner and stick it to the wall above your sleeping pod. It floats slightly, tilting, as if it, too, is trying to find balance. You wipe your face with the back of your hand. Tears don't fall here. They cling. They become little orbs that hover, shimmer, drift. You watch one float past your cheek. It's beautiful. It's annoying. It's grief made absurd and strangely elegant. You let it go. Later, during your maintenance check, you pass the viewport again. Below, the earth is turning. Cities glitter. Oceans shift. Somewhere down there is the place where you buried them. The place you left behind when the rocket ignited and shook everything loose. You wonder if anyone else is standing at their grave right now, saying their name, placing flowers, whispering memories. You whisper one of your own, then check the O2 levels. Even grief has protocol. That night, you write in your digital log. You don't mention the tears, but you mention the plaque. You mention the way Earth looked as you passed over their country. You don't say much, just enough to remember, just enough to feel. Before sleep, you open the audio file they once sent you, just their voice saying your name once, followed by a laugh and a curse at the cat for knocking over a mug. It's 23 seconds long. You play it twice. Then you close your eyes and let the quiet pull you under. In your dream, you are both weightless, not just physically, emotionally. Together in the dark, not searching for meaning, not trying to fix anything, just being. You wake to the gentle buzz of a morning systems check. You float toward the window. The sun is rising again, casting a line of gold across the curve of the planet. You place your hand on the glass. You whisper thank you, not to space, not to the stars, but to them, for having existed, for being loved, for being mourned. Even up here, where nothing was supposed to reach you. Even here. You slide open the door of a modest Tokyo apartment, toes slipping free of your house slippers as you step onto the soft tatami floor, and immediately you are met with a familiar scent. Warm rice, faint incense, the distant trace of sandalwood. It's quiet here, not the heavy silence of sorrow, but the kind that feels intentional, arranged like flowers in a vase. You cross the room and kneel before a small wooden altar tucked into the corner, flanked by 2 tiny cushions and a tray of polished offerings. On the altar rests a framed photo, an old teacup, a small ceramic cat, and a neatly folded letter with handwriting you recognize instantly. You light the incense stick, bow your head, and sit in stillness, allowing the smoke to rise and curl into the ceiling like whispered prayers. This is a Butsudan, and today is not an anniversary or a festival or an obligation. Today, you're simply visiting someone you still love. Historians still debate how the role of household shrines in modern Japan shifted over time, whether they have become merely symbolic or if the daily rituals remain rooted in deep belief. You're not concerned with the academic questions. All you know is that being here, in this quiet corner surrounded by things they once touched, makes your breathing slower, your shoulders looser. You pour tea into the tiny cup and place a soft rice cracker on the plate beside it. You speak aloud, just a little. You tell them what you cooked last night, how you tripped over the laundry, how the neighbor's dog barked at nothing again. It's not profound, but it's real. That's the point. You share life with them, not because they need to hear it, but because you need to say it. The room is still, and yet it feels full. You light a candle. You place a folded paper crane on the altar, something they once taught you to make. You sit back and let the memory of their voice wash over you. You don't cry. Not today. Today, you just remember. You glance at the shelf above the altar where their old scarf still hangs, faded but fragrant. You run your fingers along its edge. Later, you tidy the apartment. You wipe the windowsill. You straighten the books. You hum under your breath. You're not distracting yourself. You're making the world livable. You prepare a simple meal. Miso soup, grilled mackerel, steamed rice. You plate it beautifully, not just for yourself, but for them too. The bowl you choose for their portion is the one they always preferred, the chipped one with a blue edge. You set it before the altar. You bow. You eat your own meal slowly, thinking about the quiet you now carry everywhere. It's not emptiness, it's presence reshaped. You wash the dishes with care, dry them with the soft towel they used to insist wasn't absorbent enough. You smile at that. You tuck the towel back into its drawer. That night, as you slip into bed, you glance across the room where the butsudan still glows faintly in the dark. You whisper their name just once. It fills the space like a bell. You close your eyes and drift to sleep without fear, without resistance, because here in this home, in this ritual, in this quiet rhythm of tea and tidying and memory, grief is not your enemy. It is your companion. It moves with you, sits beside you, eats with you. And in that gentle presence, you find peace. You're staring at a glowing screen in the dark, thumb hovering over a profile picture that hasn't changed in months. The same smiling face frozen in time. The last post dated a year ago today. You're not in a sacred place, or surrounded by incense, or holding a candle. You're in your bed, blanket pulled to your chest, phone casting a soft blue light onto your face as the silence of late night presses down on your chest. This is digital grief, and it's more confusing than anyone warned you it would be. You scroll through old photos, old comments, old inside jokes buried in threads, reading them like scripture, looking for signs in emojis and misspelled words. Their page is still active, still tagged in posts, still getting birthday messages from people who maybe haven't heard or maybe just don't want to stop. You hesitate, then type one word, missed, and delete it. Then you type it again, longer this time, adding a memory, then delete that too. You turn off the screen, toss the phone onto the pillow beside you, then pick it up again 5 seconds later. You don't want to look, but you can't look away. Historians still debate whether this era of digital mourning marks a revolution in how humans grieve or just a new kind of loneliness dressed in notifications. Either way, the grief is real, even if the touchscreens are cold. You visit the profile like you used to visit the cemetery. You read the last photo caption like it's etched in stone. You click on old comments, see names you don't recognize, and find yourself getting angry at strangers who say too much or not enough. You replay a video they posted last summer, the sound of their voice tinny but clear, laughing about something ordinary. You put your phone face down, then flip it back over. You scroll through your own messages, looking for the last time you spoke. It was shorter than you remember. A heart emoji, a lol, no goodbye, not even close. You wish you'd said something real. You wish they had. You stare at the typing bar like it's a portal. You start writing a post on your own page, something honest, something soft. You rewrite it 5 times. You never hit send. You wonder what happens to their inbox. Do unread messages just sit there, unopened in digital limbo? Do algorithms still recommend their content? Do friend suggestions still prompt new people to connect with someone who's gone? You screenshot a photo you already saved, just in case. You copy their bio into a notes app, just in case. You create a hidden album on your phone and fill it with the screenshots, the old texts, the random bits of them you can't let go of. You rename the album but keep it hidden from others. It's your shrine now, one that lives in your pocket. You lie back and stare at the ceiling, the phone on your chest. You whisper their name, like saying it to the void might bring something back. It doesn't. but it still matters. You remember how they used to text you in all lowercase, how they always used too many exclamation points, how their selfies were always blurry. You smile even as your throat tightens. You think about logging off, about deleting the app, about letting it go, but you don't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because in this strange digital afterlife, they are still visible, still clickable, still there in a way. Not breathing, not changing, but not gone. Not entirely. You open the messages one last time and type a sentence. Not for them, for you. You type, "I hope you knew how much you mattered." And for once, you don't delete it. You don't post it either. You just leave it there. In the quiet, in the blue glow, in this space where memory has learned to live in pixels, and grief refreshes just like a feed. You're standing near the front of a small church hall, heart beating loud in your chest, fingers clutched around a folded piece of paper you've rewritten too many times. The room smells like wax and wood polish, and something faintly floral from a bouquet that's starting to wilt. You glance out at the faces, some familiar, some not. A few people are crying. Some are just staring. A couple are trying too hard not to cry and failing. You're not sure which group you belong to yet. Today is the funeral, and someone asked you to speak. You said yes without thinking. Now you're wondering why. You open the paper slowly, careful not to crinkle it too loud and clear your throat. You stare down at the first line. It's not a quote. It's not a prayer. It's just their name. And that alone nearly undoes you. You glance up. Everyone's watching. You take a breath. You begin. You talk about who they were, not the achievements, not the big milestones, but the little things. How they always burned their toast. How they could never remember where they put their keys. How they once cried during a commercial about a lost dog and denied it for years. You talk about how they laughed, about how their laugh made you feel like the sun was finally coming out. You mention their terrible taste in music, their unmatched ability to ruin punchlines, their unshakable loyalty. You don't make it fancy. You just tell the truth. Historians still debate the function of eulogies, whether they're for the living or the dead, whether they honor or sanitize, whether they're healing or just performance. But in this moment, standing here with your voice shaking and your hands damp, it doesn't feel like theory. It feels necessary. You pause, someone sniffles. You go on. You say the thing you meant to say while they were still alive but never quite did. You say thank you. You say I'm sorry. You say I wish I'd known. You say I miss you. And then you fold the paper and step back. You don't remember walking to your seat. You only remember sitting down and realizing you were holding your breath. You exhale. It doesn't fix anything, but it helps. Later, people pat your shoulder. They say things like, "You were so brave," and "that was beautiful," and they would have loved that. You smile and nod and pretend to absorb the words. But inside, you're just replaying the moment their name came out of your mouth and almost broke you. At the reception, you eat a small sandwich you don't really want and sip punch that tastes like childhood and sugar. You overhear stories. Some you know, some you don't. You laugh at one. You excuse yourself during another. You find a chair near the edge of the room and watch the way everyone grieves in different shades. Some loudly, some with a tight jaw, some by eating 5 cookies in a row. You sit quietly. You think about what wasn't said. about what couldn't be. You think about how grief doesn't need a stage, but sometimes it asks for one anyway. You unfold the paper again later that night. You read the words to yourself in the bathroom mirror. You imagine they're standing there, listening. You imagine their reaction. You smile. You cry. You fold the paper and tuck it into a drawer you won't open for a long time. But you'll know it's there, waiting, like the grief, like the love. You're sitting on the edge of your bed, elbows on knees, staring down at your hands like they might offer some clue to the heaviness inside your chest. It's been weeks, or maybe months since they passed. Time doesn't work the same anymore. It stretches and folds in on itself like warm taffy. You get up and walk to the kitchen, not because you're hungry, but because you need to move. You boil water. You forget why. You find the tea bag already in the mug, the steam curling like a soft sigh. You carry it back to your room and place it on the windowsill, untouched. This is what it looks like now, this quiet living, this soft existing in the after. You open a book and close it again. You scroll. You sigh. You stare. Then, without really meaning to, you open the folder on your laptop labeled Letters. You'd forgotten about it. Or maybe you just avoided it. Inside are the ones they sent you. Typed, texted, scribbled, half finished. You click one. It opens. Just thinking of you, it says. That's it. That's all. But it hits like thunder. You close the laptop gently. Historians still debate whether grief rewires the brain or simply pulls all the wires loose. You're not sure which this is. You're only sure that everything feels like it's running on delay. You walk to the bathroom. You stare at your reflection. You brush your teeth. You forget the next step. You sit on the floor instead. You remember something they once said. Something stupid and funny and so incredibly them. And you laugh once before your throat catches and turns it into a sob. You let it. No one's watching. It's allowed. You lie down on the tile floor. It's cold. It feels good. Grounding. Honest. You whisper their name like a secret and let it hang there in the silence. Later, you make toast. You burn it. You eat it anyway. You open a drawer and find their scarf. You press it to your face. It doesn't smell like them anymore. You wish it did. You fold it carefully and put it back. You call a friend. You say nothing important. They don't mind. You say you're tired. They say they're here. You believe them. You end the call. You sit with the quiet. You open a journal and write one sentence. I still miss you. That's all you can manage. That's all you need. You close the book. You turn off the light. You lie in bed, hands folded, listening to your own heartbeat. You think about how strange it is to feel so full of someone who is no longer here. You think about how love doesn't vanish when the body does. It lingers. It stains things. It braids itself into your breath. You sleep. You wake. You repeat. Grief is not a chapter you finish. It is not a clean line you cross. It is a companion, a shadow, a soft echo that follows you through grocery stores and songs and laundry days and sunsets. And somehow it teaches you things about what mattered, what still does, and what always will. You pour another cup of tea. You drink it this time. It's still warm. You close your eyes. You say good morning. You say their name. You open the window. And the light comes in. You are sitting on the edge of your bed, elbows on your knees, staring down at your hands as if they might reveal something. Some secret meaning, some hidden instruction, some invisible answer to this quiet, constant ache you carry around in your chest. The morning light filters in through the blinds in soft, uneven lines, cutting across the dust in the air like threads that never quite connect. The tea on the nightstand has gone cold again. You meant to drink it. You made it with good intentions. You even added a little honey, just the way they used to like it. But it sits there now, untouched, a small offering to a silence that doesn't ask for anything. You stand slowly and walk to the kitchen, your body remembering the motions before your mind catches up. You open the fridge. You stare at nothing. You close it again. You take a piece of bread, drop it into the toaster, and wait. The low hum of the appliance filling the space like background music to a life paused indefinitely. When the toast pops up, you forget the butter. You eat it anyway. You chew slowly, thoughtfully, like each bite contains something sacred. Historians still debate how the rituals of private grief have evolved in modern homes. How, in the absence of public mourning and formal customs, we've created new ones from quiet repetition and small acts of remembrance. You think about that as you rinse your plate. Dry it with a towel that still has their initials embroidered in the corner, and place it gently in the rack. You return to your bedroom, open your laptop, and stare at the desktop screen for a long time before finally clicking on a folder you named months ago and haven't opened since. It's filled with their words, letters, emails, screenshots of texts, little notes on recipe cards and the back of receipts. You open one at random. It's short. Don't forget to buy milk. Love you. You close it slowly, not because it hurts too much, but because even the smallest things are too loud right now. You open another. This one is longer. It's from the first year you met, filled with inside jokes, plans for a future that didn't quite happen, lines you could recite by heart, but still read like scripture. You laugh once, out loud, a sound so unexpected it startles you. Then you cry. Not a flood, not a breakdown, just a slow leak, like a faucet you can't quite turn off. You wipe your face on your sleeve and leave the computer open. You walk into the hallway, passing by the closet you haven't touched. You open the door. Their coat is still there. You press your face against it. It doesn't smell like them anymore, but your memory fills in the gaps. You close your eyes and breathe anyway. You sit on the floor for a while, not doing anything, not planning anything, just sitting. The dog wanders in and rests their head on your leg. You scratch behind their ear, they sigh. You whisper their name, just once. It fills the room like warm water. You stand again and find yourself by the window, watching a neighbor hang laundry, a child ride by on a bike, a bird peck at a crust on the sidewalk. The world moves forward. You're still here. You open a notebook and write, I didn't expect the silence to be the loudest part. Then you write their name, then you stop. That's enough for today. You make another cup of tea. This time, you drink it, slowly. You don't check your phone. You don't respond to messages. You let yourself exist without being available. You lie back down, fully dressed, blanket over your legs, staring at the ceiling and counting the cracks in the plaster like constellations. You imagine them lying beside you, not speaking, just being. You close your eyes and hold that picture in your mind until sleep finally takes you. And when you wake, it's still there, a little softer, a little quieter, But there, you stretch, turn on the lamp, and begin again. You're lying still in the middle of the night, the room dark except for the dim orange glow of a street light filtering through the curtain, and your mind is circling something you read earlier, an article barely a few paragraphs long about how trauma and grief can be passed down through blood, through cells, through generations. They called it epigenetics, the science of inheritance beyond just hair color and height, beyond eye shape or allergies. You think about that as you stare at the ceiling, about how maybe what you're feeling right now doesn't even begin with you. Maybe it's older. Maybe it's inherited. Maybe it came from someone long gone, someone you never met, someone who lived through something unspeakable and survived by burying it deep inside, only for that sorrow to resurface years later in your chest, your bones, your unexplainable sense of missing someone you couldn't possibly name. You sit up slowly, swing your legs over the edge of the bed, feet touching the floor with the weight of more than just your own grief. You walk to the kitchen and pour a glass of water. You drink it in silence. You stand there for a while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, wondering if your great-grandmother cried in the same way you do, if she too stared at a wall and waited for the ache to become manageable. You open a drawer and pull out an old photo album, one filled with black and white portraits and faces that look a little like yours, but unfamiliar in every other way. You trace a line down the side of one photograph, the corner curled, the edges soft. A man in uniform, a woman in a shawl, a child holding a doll. You don't know their names. No one wrote them down, but you feel something, a spark, a strange familiarity. You flip the page, more faces, more unsmiling expressions, more lives folded into silence. Historians still debate the extent to which trauma shapes descendants, whether inherited memory is more biology or folklore. You don't care about the argument. You care that when you hold this album, something stirs in your chest like recognition. You close the book and set it gently on the table. You return to your room and sit by the window, staring out into the soft night. The stars are faint, but they're there. You wonder if they saw these same stars, these people whose pain might live in your bones. You wonder if, in some strange way, your tears tonight complete a cycle they never got to finish. You whisper something you don't quite understand. You say, "I'm still here." You say, "I remember you, even if I don't know your name." You say, "It didn't end with you." You go back to bed and lie down. The pillow is warm. The blanket's heavy. You close your eyes and imagine yourself as a link in a long chain, one forged from joy and grief, laughter and fear, survival and silence. And somehow, that makes the loneliness feel a little less sharp. You are part of something, a long, aching inheritance, a thread that stretches through time and still holds. When morning comes, you rise early. You make coffee slowly. You sit with your notebook and begin to write, not about today, but about the things your body seems to remember. You describe a room you've never seen, a song you've never heard, a sadness that feels ancient. You let it all spill out. You do not edit. You do not question. You simply write. And when the pen finally slows, you place the notebook down with care, as though it contains something sacred. Because maybe it does. Maybe healing starts with naming the ache, even if you don't know whose ache it originally was. You walk outside barefoot and stand in the yard. The sun is rising. The grass is cold. You close your eyes and lift your face to the light. You breathe in deeply, and this time it feels like something new has entered you, something old finally exhaled. You're standing in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a wooden spoon, stirring a pot of soup that smells like garlic, onions, and something familiar you can't quite name. And as the steam rises and fogs the window above the sink, you realize you've been humming a song they used to hum, low and tuneless but warm. The spoon clicks against the pot's edge as you stir, not because the soup needs it, but because the rhythm steadies you, gives your hands something to do, while your heart tries to find its own pace again. The room is small, cluttered with notes, spices, and soft light. The floor creaks when you shift your weight. The kettle hisses in the background, and somewhere in the next room, the dog sighs in her sleep. You're not making a feast, just dinner for one. But it feels like more than that. It feels like rebuilding. You reach for a small dish and begin slicing herbs, remembering how they used to insist that parsley was underrated, how they'd tap the knife twice on the cutting board like a kind of punctuation. You do it too now, without thinking. Muscle memory or something deeper. Grief has made a home here in this kitchen, but it doesn't rattle the cupboards anymore. It sits quietly, watching, occasionally reaching for the salt. You ladle soup into a chipped bowl they once said looked like the moon, set it gently on the table, and sit down across from the empty chair you stopped avoiding weeks ago. You don't light a candle. You don't say a prayer. You just eat, slowly, thoughtfully, because this is part of it too. Living, nourishing, remembering. You wash the dishes without music. You dry your hands on the towel with their initials stitched in the corner, threadbare from years of use. You hang it back neatly, smoothing the edges. Historians still debate whether domestic ritual helps the grieving process or simply distracts the mind from the immensity of absence. But here, in this small kitchen, with its soft walls and wooden spoons, you're not distracted. You're participating. You're folding grief into action, memory into muscle, healing into repetition. You wipe down the counter. You sweep the floor. You open the window for a moment and let the cool night air brush against your face. You close your eyes and inhale. There's no dramatic revelation, no swell of music, no sudden peace, just quiet, just breath, just enough. Later, you curl up on the couch with a blanket that still carries traces of their cologne, faded now, but undeniable. You turn on the lamp they picked out, the one you once thought was ugly, but now can't imagine replacing. You open the book they loved, the one you never got around to reading when they were alive. You begin on page 1. You let the words wash over you like a tide. You read until your eyes blur. Then you mark the page with a photograph they left inside. A snapshot of you, mid-laugh, a blurred background, a thumb in the corner. You smile. You close the book. You sit for a while in the golden light, not doing anything, not needing to. Then you rise, stretch, and check the lock on the door. You turn off the light. You whisper, "Good night," into the room, not out of habit, but intention, because you still share the night with them, even if it's only in your thoughts. You lie in bed and pull the blanket up to your chin. You think about tomorrow, about what you'll cook, about how you'll keep folding memory into ordinary acts. You think about how you've stopped waiting for the grief to go away. You've started learning to live with it, beside it, even through it. You close your eyes and feel their presence, not as an absence, but as a quiet thread woven through your day. And for the first time in a long time, you fall asleep without fear. You're walking through a local market on a late Saturday morning, the kind where stalls overflow with ripe fruit, handmade soaps, loaves of bread that crackle as they're touched. And there's the warm babble of vendors talking over each other, calling out deals, laughing at shared jokes. You didn't plan to come here. You just ended up here, carried by a quiet instinct to be among the living, to let the noise and motion wrap around you like a blanket. The sun is out, and for once, it's not too much. It presses on your shoulders just enough to remind you that you have shoulders, a spine, a body capable of standing and walking and breathing. You stop at a stand selling wildflowers. There's a bucket of small white ones, baby's breath maybe, and a woman your grandmother's age offers you a bunch with a smile that doesn't need a reason. You pay in coins and keep walking. You pass a man playing a guitar. His case is open, velvet lined, dotted with coins and folded bills. The song is slow and unfamiliar, but the melody tugs at something inside you. You pause for a moment, then drop a coin in and nod. He nods back. Connection. No words needed. You keep walking. You buy a croissant and eat it as you walk, crumbs on your chin, the buttery warmth making you close your eyes briefly. Historians still debate whether these small modern rituals, markets, music, shared glances, serve the same purpose as the ancient healing rites performed around fire pits and riverbanks, whether we've replaced sacred ceremony with mundane joy. Maybe. Or maybe both things are sacred in their own way. You step into a small used bookshop, the kind with creaky floors and handwritten signs and a cat asleep on a stack of dictionaries. You wander without a goal. You pick up a book you recognize and another you don't. You flip through the pages, inhale the smell of ink and dust and time. One of them has an inscription. To someone you've never met, from someone who loved them. You smile and put it back. You buy nothing, but you leave feeling full. Outside, the air has shifted. Clouds have begun to gather, soft and slow. You walk toward home, past the mural you never noticed before. An abstract swirl of colors that somehow reminds you of loss and hope all tangled together. You stop and take a picture of it. Later, you'll add it to a new folder called Things That Feel Like Healing. You turn the corner onto your street. A neighbor waves. You wave back. Their kid is chasing something invisible across the lawn. The sound of laughter cuts through the air like music. You unlock your door, step inside, and take off your shoes. The house smells like warm wood and fabric, and the candle you lit last night. You carry your flowers to the kitchen, trim the stems, and place them in a glass jar that once held pickles. They bloom instantly, wide and bright. You make tea and sit by the window. You watch the clouds roll in. The sky darkens. Rain begins, soft at first, then steadier. You listen to it tap the roof, trickle down the glass, soak into the earth. You think about him again, not with pain, with softness. You remember the way they used to hum during storms. You hum now too, matching the rain's rhythm. You whisper their name once, just to feel it on your tongue. Then you sit in the silence that follows, and it feels more like presence than absence. You stay there a while, hands wrapped around your tea, watching the world continue in its slow, quiet way. You think about all the things you've done, small, tender things to keep going, to honor them, to stay. You think about the grief that once threatened to drown you, now folded neatly into your daily rituals, into flower jars and songs and soft rains. You think about how far you've come. You exhale deeply, and the breath feels full, steady, real. You close your eyes. You say thank you for the pain that made you softer, for the memories that made you kinder, for the love that never left. You say it again, quietly, thank you. Now that the story has gently come to its close, you don't need to think anymore. There's nothing to figure out, nothing left unresolved. You're just here, present, safe, held in the soft gravity of this quiet moment. The light in your room is low, or maybe it's already gone. Your blanket hugs your shoulders like a quiet promise that tonight, your only job is to let go. Let go of everything you carried into the story, the ache in your chest, the echo of someone's name, the thoughts that circled endlessly. They don't need answers tonight. They only need space, stillness, time. So breathe, deeper now. Let the breath slide through your body like warm tea poured slowly into a favorite mug. You don't need to earn this peace. It's yours. And it's always been waiting. If there's a sound around you, the hum of a fan, the rustle of a curtain, the faint rhythm of your own breath, let it become a rhythm you can fall into. No need to control it, just follow it. Let it rock you like waves on a still lake. You're floating now, not upward, not outward, but inward, into yourself, into the quiet that's been under all the noise. You've walked a long path tonight, through stories older than memory, through grief held in silence and healing found in tiny, ordinary acts. You stood in ancient streets. You stirred soup in a dim kitchen. You lit candles, buried your face in warm cloth, and whispered, thank you to people who are gone but not lost. You made space for grief. And in doing that, you made space for sleep, for rest, for something deeper than tiredness, restoration. You're not broken. You're not failing. You're simply someone who's lived. And living always leaves a trace. It leaves weight, but it also leaves music and meaning and beauty that doesn't fade. You can feel it now, can't you? That slight softening around your heart, that loosening in your shoulders, that warm ache behind your eyes that isn't quite sadness, it's tenderness, compassion for yourself, for your story, for all the quiet pain you've carried without letting it harden you. Let that be your lullaby tonight. Not a song with words, but a feeling, a knowing, that you have made it through another day, another night, another memory, another breath, and you didn't need to be perfect. You only needed to be present. So now, take off the armor. You don't need it here. Let the heaviness drop away like a coat shrugged off at the door. Let your body melt into the bed, not as a retreat, but as a return. You are coming home, not to a place, but to a peace that waits inside you when the noise dies down. The world is still turning, yes, but right now, it turns without your help. You've done enough. You've felt enough. You've remembered enough. And now, it's time to sleep. If a thought returns, about tomorrow, or yesterday, or something unsaid, let it drift by like a feather. You don't have to catch it. Just let it go. Let it float out the window and dissolve into the stars. You're safe now. You're home. You're loved. Even by the people who couldn't say it. Even by the ones you've never met. Whose names are buried, but whose echoes still hum in your bones. Close your eyes. Not out of exhaustion, but out of trust. The world will wait. You've built a gentle bridge between sorrow and comfort, and now you get to walk across it into sleep. Maybe you'll dream tonight of soft rains, or quiet kitchens, or hands you used to hold. Maybe you won't dream at all. That's okay too. Silence is its own blessing. Let the quiet hold you now. Let the darkness be velvet, not void. Let yourself sink, not in despair, but in relief. You are here, still, and that is a miracle. The sun is far away, the sky is patient, the moon knows your name, and the night wants nothing from you but rest. So close your eyes, slow your breath, let the stillness bloom. You've done beautifully. You are loved, you are safe, you are allowed to rest.